Hi, everyone. So let me just open my comment section to make sure I get all you guys on my radar. And we are good to go. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Digital Fashion Innovator Series here on LinkedIn Live. My name is Marie Bastian. I'm the CEO and founder of World of Mesh, and I'm your host for today's session. And this new era of digital fashion is just bringing together all these amazing talents from all around the globe. And this platform is here to share their story and to inspire a whole new generation of digital creators out there, and to celebrate what you guys are achieving on this journey right now, and how you're shaping this new era of digital fashion on your go. All our guests are speaking on behalf of themselves, not for the companies they work at. And if you have any questions, we're going to be collecting them during the session. I'll bring them in on the fly, and we can also get back to some questions at the end of the session. And before we get started, I just wanted to share with you guys, I've been doing my homework and my analytics. And so today, actually, we have been hosting this platform for 1 year. So cheers to that. Thanks to you all for joining. We had some amazing conversations, and I noticed that 20 minutes or half hour is like the hot spot for our conversation. And then we'll add another 10 minutes of question and answer sessions for you guys. So in total, we'll be having a 40-minute session to make sure that we keep your attention and that we're mindful with your time. Just to let you guys know, we're definitely checking out to make sure this platform really suits you guys as well. Okay, so with that said, I just really want to give a warm welcome to our guests today. Wes is with us, and today we'll be talking about the art of resilience, Web3's creator's guide through this, revolution that we're in right now. Thank you so much for joining us, Wes.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Absolutely. Very nice. So, maybe we can, as usual, get started with your journey and your story. Maybe you can give us, for a start out, a quick introduction of, who you are, how you got into digital fashion, and the different projects you've been working on so far.
Sure. So my name is Wes. I also go by We See Clearly, as you see under my name. And I just kind of came out of a 3-year marathon in Web3. I also call it like a psychedelic trip because it was just like all encompassing, and I might still be on it. But basically it started out in 2020 when I entered a DAO, and the DAO is called MetaFactory. And I worked there full time as a community member, but also as a core team contributor. And then I moved into a metaverse fashion company based out of Hong Kong called BNB. And I was initially a creative consultant there, and then took a creative direction role, and went back to being full-time self-employed. So independent creative director now since April. And I'm actually in the process of launching 2 projects. One is very much aligned with fashion and communication, and the other one is a return to my first love and also my longest professional relationship, which is painting.
Nice. So I can tell we're going to have some art topics coming into this conversation. I always love digging deep into that as well. And I know that you also have a philosophy background, or you're very into that topic as well. So this conversation I've been really looking forward to, because I think this is going to give a nice deep blend of what's actually happening in our industry, and also at a creator's level, and what this actually means for humanity, and how we're interacting with art, with fashion, with products, and how it all comes together. So
amazing.
Really exciting. Yeah. And I mean, you have all these different influences that you're bringing together. I know that the MetaFactory has been like an iconic moment in Web3. So that was a really huge milestone that you were actually part of. And things really got starting after that, right? Can you tell us a little bit of your experience at the MetaFactory and how you actually got into it? Because I think there's a backstory that involves some of our colleagues there as well, if I remember correctly.
I mean, there's always a backstory. For me, again, like it started in 2020, where I was in a studio and I was kind of wrapping up my paintings, not really knowing what the next step was, but being very interested in what I was seeing in blockchain. And I basically just jumped into, I read something about MetaFactory. I think it was on like, I don't know, Forbes article or something. And I just jumped into their Discord, and it was very crazy. Like that initial shock of just, wow, so many people talking all the time. And
Yeah.
I basically just also joined the conversation and came in there with my own too idealistic sense, like, hey, like I have no idea what's going on here, but like I have some dreams that I want to fix in fashion because I think it's all messed up. And within a couple of minutes, I had a conversation with one of the co-founders, Drew Harding, and we set up a call and basically talked about some of the ideas. And he was so open and receptive to not only giving me the time of day, but also bringing me into the community and saying, hey, we don't have any borders here. Like, if you're interested, just jump in and then do what you want to do, and we'll see if it fits. So
Yeah.
that's how it started with MetaFactory. And at the time, I was actually working another job with a company called New Foundation today. And I basically decided to go full time with MetaFactory because I found that dynamic to be so novel and something that was a template that I wanted to personally refine and also refine as a community for how people could work together in more like decentralized and fair exchanges.
Yeah, I love that you described that direct contact to the founders that you get in this community, because that's very yeah, that's the spirit that we have in these Web3 communities as well. Can you maybe share for everyone out there who's wondering what the Meta Factory is and what it's about, a little bit of a frame so they can understand yeah, what projects you were working on, and yeah, how it all came about.
Sure. So MetaFactory is a DAO, which stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization. And the principle of a DAO is basically a community that has coordination kind of augmented by the tech, the underlying tech. And a lot of that speaks to distribution of compensation and also some of the working dynamics of how you kind of see the emergent working structures of people. MetaFactory was tackling more of a community issue that it basically was born out of the two co-founders going to a bunch of crypto conferences and seeing that there was like super intelligent people making amazing projects, but the merge itself was completely basic and had none of that kind of intellectual rigor to like how it was made or what it represented. So
Yeah.
MetaFactory was bringing the community aspect to basically creating a launchpad for headless brands to anyone could come in, especially Ethereum affiliated projects, because that was our community. They could
Yeah.
come in and launch a product. And if that product was successful, then it could be the beginning of a brand for them. And our community was built up of people who were actively contributing on the design front, on coordination, on even like financials. And so it was just like this mess, this like chaos of people wanting to contribute and trying to figure out all these new parameters around designing merch and sourcing things and supply chain issues. And I think it was kind of like a diving into the deep end for a lot of people of the complications of like fashion production, which
Yeah.
is a whole aspect of Web3 that I really love, is that kind of education, that co-education that happens where you don't expect that you're actually coming in to that you're going to learn a lot, but because you want something on the other side, you
Yeah.
end up going through this incredible learning curve together.
Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah, co-creation, co-education is a big part that I really enjoy, because and when you're finding your answers together, it's you see the topics and the problems from different angles as well. You get a much wider perspective on a challenge that you maybe occur in the tech landscape.
Exactly.
I love it how different people approach the same problem in totally different ways.
Yeah.
But I love that you mentioned that the founders also yeah, bumped into each other on a conference and started the whole project. I'm sure pretty much like 99% of all our projects have started that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, being at conferences, getting your connections going, just going up to people and speaking to them. is a big part of it. And actually, I do remember, I think you were at PI Apparel as well, like 2 years ago.
Mhm.
And I think Ricard from Atakak, which is now I think A Industries, they merged into. He was had a presentation, and you actually came up to him afterwards. And I remember that moment because I was standing right nearby, and you had these yellow sunglasses on, your bomber jacket, and you went up to him and said, "Hey, you know what? I really want to connect with you. I have a cool idea." And you guys just started going. You can tell the energy was just on between you guys. So yeah, that was a really nice moment that I actually witnessed. I was there as well, and I love sharing that.
That's a good memory that you have with the yellow glasses. I even
Yeah, I
forgot.
don't know. Well, I love. I'm a fashion lover, so you definitely stuck out of the crowd there.
I mean, we met at the last one, and
Yeah, that's right.
there's
That's
there's
right.
so much to be said for the it is a magical thing to have the full communication of like a whole bodied presence, which I think is one of the challenges with Web3 is that so much of it happens through this kind of interfacing behind pseudonyms or at most maybe a Zoom call, but a lot of people don't want to be on Zoom anyway.
Yeah,
So I think that yeah, it's one of the things about this digital existence where for all of the possibilities that we talk about and that you talk about in your series, there's also these kinds of reminders of like ways that we need to connect that can reveal more information or more points of resonance between people that
yeah,
still happens in physical and in that kind of accidental bumping into somebody.
absolutely. And yeah, also respecting that there's a lot of people in the Web3 community that really are very aware of their digital properties and whatever they share online, and to also respect that there's different approaches out there.
Yeah.
And so for anyone who hasn't been in this in the space very much, or and they've encountered people having only avatars in their images, there's a big like crowd that's just connecting on that point, and really actively yeah, shaping the way they share their data, and being really mindful about that as well.
Yeah. And I would just say to that point, because as like a extreme introvert when it comes to big crowds for a sustained amount of days, like 6-day conferences are my biggest nightmare, but I've
Yeah,
done them. There's also many examples in Web3 and some of the creators that were really like the people that I came into MetaFactory just looking up to so much, who never go to conferences. And what their MO is just showing up in the spaces where people show up in Web3, so in Discord at the time,
yeah.
and just like, you know, having a really consistent way of showing and delivering their contributions to the project.
Apologies.
Yeah.
Note not to leave your phone on when you're on a call. So yeah, just continue.
Yeah. So I think I just wanted to say that because I think that it was one of the things that was really enticing for me, that I could show up, or first of all, I could kind of figure out from all my experience before ways in which I didn't want to show up. And especially coming from the art world, there's a lot of emphasis on this kind of like first impression, going to these events, going to openings, having to be really extroverted, and maybe if you're not, compensating by drinking a lot, or whatever it
Yeah,
is. And I just feel like there's a lot of neurodiversity in the Web3 space. And that means that a lot of people are going to show up in completely unexpected ways, whether that's like only showing up in metaverses, having, instead of Zoom calls, they do calls in a 3D space, which is something that we did in MetaFactory, where we would actually go into Hyperfi and we would like construct idea boards in 3D spaces together, because that was how people wanted to think and work through problems.
yeah.
So I think that is one of the blessings of like more people having to connect because they want to achieve something together, means that tools are shaped in order to allow those contributions to really circulate.
Yeah, having the tools also adapt to the people instead of the other way around. I mean, that's like a
Yeah,
general standard that we should be following in any digitization process. So
agreed.
that's a really good point as well. So yeah, I mean, you mentioned that actually an introvert in this space as well. And I'm sure there's a lot of introverts out there as well, trying to find their way, how to cope with everything that's going on, how they show up as well. Maybe you can share a little bit, first of all, how the landscape has been changing over the last few years, like when you first started out to now, and which mechanisms or strategies you found that work really good for you as an introvert to be in this space besides the ones you just mentioned. Is there anything you can share with the people out there?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, time is also a big quotient in this, where like it's still a very early kind of Wild West place.
Yeah.
And I think for that reason, there's a horizontality of access. So what I mean by that, and something we already mentioned before, is like, unlike the traditional creative industries where you have these crazy hierarchies or citadels of access, and you can't talk to anyone that's actually has any importance because you have to go through that whole ladder and climb it. In
Yeah.
Web3, it's like the focal point is not trying to get to that person, it's finding a shared interest and then kind of leaning into the interest and connecting through that inspiration. So I think that
Beautiful.
a lot of what holds us back, and a lot of what held me back, and what I was noticing in the Metafactory community, is that there are so many opportunities right on the other side of our own conditioning.
Yeah.
So that means that if you come into a space that's very decentralized and there is no one calling the shots, you actually have to call your own shots and kind of test the waters that way. And it's a very different dynamic of working.
It
And that
is.
can really slow things down, because so many of us are waiting for a directive to be handed down. And we hate it, like we complain about it, but we don't really have practice in doing it any other way. So I think that's why from the outside it might have looked like there was a lot of chaos and a lot of kind of like confusion, and there was, but that's a natural incubation period, or like a loosening period of all these conditions that we act out of just because we haven't been shown any other way of working. And now that we're creating that, there's this massive adjustment period that I think is really exciting to be part of, because that deconditioning takes time and it just is messy, and it's going to be messy. But I think showing up for it means you're going to kind of work in tandem with the evolution of the space itself.
Yeah, so actually just embracing that adaptability. That's
Yeah.
the word I'm looking for. So being able to just adjust to the different directions that are going on, being open for change, not fixing yourself too much to one workflow or one tool or one creative environment that you're in.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. And maybe also not taking it too hard on yourself, and taking those breaks you need in between too, right? Because if you keep switching your workflows, it can be very challenging on yourself. And I think there's a lot of people that are just putting like their everything into their projects and giving
Mhm.
it their all. And also stepping back and taking those breaks and reflecting on what's actually happening is a really, really important point, I guess, as well.
Yeah, I mean, health, like there's no person without their health. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't think Web3 has that going for them, because when you're working across 7 time zones, there's no cognizance of the fact that you should be asleep, you know? And because it's all on the computer and you have these lights on because you want to be pretty on Zoom, it's like all these cycles are thrown off. And I do find that
Yeah.
topic is talked about, but there just needs to be an expansion from like, okay, coordinating with other human beings might be the number one priority, but then there's coordination with your immediate environment, with the cycles that you have to follow in order to show up at your best capacity every day.
Yeah.
And I definitely I took a nosedive in my own health, just because I was so excited to like be there and to connect with people. But after 3 years of it, I was like, oof. I mean, I can feel it in my eyes. I can feel it like in kind of falling out of rhythm with my body and stuff. So I
Yeah.
definitely think that goes back to the point of like, on the one hand, you might come into it with a lot of apprehension because it's so different. Then you get really excited once you start to see the conditioning fall away. But then there's a requirement afterwards to find that kind of centralization or organization within so that you can show up in chaos and still manage to get something done and not kill yourself trying to do it.
Yeah. No, that's the big challenge, right? To find
Yeah.
that sweet spot and that walk that line. Yeah, so you've been in this industry as a change maker, shaking up different areas of the Web3 space for sure. How has it been as a creator, like witnessing these big changes that are coming along your way? What was like the most exciting trends that you've been seeing recently that really that maybe took you in a totally different direction, and that maybe you found a connection point with your art projects and everything that's going on there? Is there anything
Yeah.
that really caught your eye recently that you're really excited about?
I feel like some of the I feel like there's so much with the technology that's there to explore and there to be used as a canvas for new forms of creativity. And
Yeah,
I think that's where, bringing it back to fashion, I find that there's kind of the obvious plays that are really only open to the big conglomerates that can, Gucci's always going to be successful in a game. Like, they're always going to sell their products. But for small independent designers, that link between gaming and fashion may not be so profitable. And you see that with a lot of startups that kind of were flowing into that metaverse hype, but there wasn't really a traction there. So I think that for fashion, the innovation may be a little bit less sexy than everyone expects. And I say that because really fashion's biggest success is its sexiness.
yeah,
Its biggest issue is the fact that there's a lot of unsexy stuff that happens on the back end. But
yeah,
this technology, not just meaning blockchain, but also just like digital fashion creation, offers so many opportunities for creators who formerly didn't have access to the capital to, buy the fabrics, study the pattern stuff, get the machinery, do the prototyping. It
yeah,
gives them a chance to work with this as a creative medium. So I think that there's this kind of percolation of new energy in the creative fashion space, which is going to be a combination of both the promise of the technology with more access just in digital creation of fashion. Um, and I think one aspect that is kind of, there are these things, these kinds of memes, and I don't mean memes in the GIF way, but I mean more like these mimetic viral catchwords or buzzwords that go around. And fashion and AR has been this like big thing, with try-ons and
yeah,
basically all about how to, which is amazing. The way that technology has progressed has been amazing to watch. I think there's also a whole nother vector of like, okay, so let's say we have augmented reality. What has fashion kind of treated as one of the unfortunate externalities to fashion that we can actually creatively infuse with value again? Because a lot of what Web3 is about creating value where we didn't see value before. And
yes,
I think we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can look to other industries and say, why is it that in baseball trading cards, or maybe not baseball trading cards actually, but in like antiques, everyone wants like a patina. They want to see age. They want to see a story. And in fashion, it's like, hide the patina, hide the use value. We'll make a rental thing, but we'll make sure everything is super
shiny and spiffy.
sterilized, shiny. So are there ways of taking things that have been detractors of value and somehow creatively reformatting them through this technology into ways that can drive circularity of value and amplification of value? And that is abstract because there isn't a one size fit all solution there. But I do think that, if you are showing up as a creator in this space, your talents can be applied not just to the final product of a fashion thing, which really can't be innovated that much more because it is what it is. But there's all of the other parts of the supply chain that are so thirsty for your
Whole
creativity,
ecosystem.
whole ecosystem, which not only is thirsty for your creativity, and there are real problems to be solved there. And I think the sweetest romance is creativity and a real problem. Like things really take off there. So I think that's the big invitation and the big need. Um, yeah.
That was a really nice last sentence. I love that. That's gonna come in our recaps. Yeah, but you're right. I totally agree. Our fashion industry is just, I mean, it's the essence of fashion. Fashion is, of course, expressing your identity, but it has a lot to do with visual attraction, and you know, this having this like sexy product that people just crave for.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, there's a whole infrastructure behind this digital fashion business that is still evolving and being built right now.
Yeah.
And often the first touch points are these really shiny images or renderings or visualizations or worlds. But behind that, there's so much that needs to be built. And I think that's where brands really and creators also go through. The first touch point is this really exciting new world, but then you start going to into the details, into the technology challenges that brands and creators are facing, and that they're also solving together.
Yeah.
And you need to get the foundation right to really deliver good products and to have this seamless workflow that everyone's striving for, right?
You do. Definitely.
Yeah, nice. So yeah, I mean, Web3 is like beyond also a concept, right? We're also talking about agile production, horizontal ideation, so all those topics that we've been touching on this conversation. Um, so for building resilience in this space, I guess just to sum it up, what we've been talking about, it's really about embracing that adaptability. I've got it with that word today, and staying really open for change and new ideas in these creative fields. Yeah, being able to switch to new workflows without putting too much effort into the ones you're working on, because you might be flexible on that point to adjust.
Yep.
We also talked about cultivating a supportive network around yourself, learning together, growing together, being in this space and this community space and having fellow creatives you can connect with, which can be friends, can be mentors. Yeah, just having that network is really important. The third
Yep.
point we mentioned was self-care, right? So really taking care of yourself, taking your breaks, and yeah, taking care of your mental health and your emotional, physical well-being, and not being having that fear of missing out. Because this is just the very beginning of this process. There's so much still to come, and it's really important to have yourself in a good state of mind, so you can actually also continue on this journey. And I
Yeah.
guess also the last point was also, yeah, seeking these learning opportunities in these spaces as well, connecting with people like you did with the MetaFactory and multiple other platforms as well and projects. Approaching people, just connecting with them and finding these opportunities because they're out there. You just need to go out and connect with the people and have conversations. And it's like you said, when creativity meets, you said a issue to be solved, that's when magic happens. So that's my sentence I'm taking away from this conversation, which I
Take it.
really loved. Beautifully
Um,
said.
it's probably bad practice to add something new after you've summarized everything, but I will just quickly say that
Yeah,
like
go for it.
it's very easy to get caught up in feeling like everything's happening too quickly.
Mhm.
But it's not. I mean, it is, but it's
Yeah.
not. If you just like shut down the input for a day, you can learn a lot about the underlying technology. You can take a course, you can join an actual Web3 community that is about co-education called Kernel, and Kernel brings people through a course curriculum learning all about different projects in Web3 that are especially focused on refi, like regenerative finance and regenerative communities, and finding funding for projects in like unorthodox ways.
Yes.
So I think there's really a need, if you want to enter this space, to just take literally a day to start your education if you haven't already, because that's the only way that you'll be able to to find where the innovation is and attach yourself to that point of inspiration. Otherwise, it's always going to be this kind of screen that's just flashing too quickly before your eyes.
That's a great point because I actually had a conversation also with a friend of mine, which I have weekly calls with. We mentor each other as well. And she also said that there's so much happening in the world right now, and all the creators out there, all the entrepreneurs, all people working for brands, everyone actually in this industry is really faced with a lot of things happening at the same time. I mean, this year has been wild. If you if you
Yeah.
listen to what's going on in the news with for example, OpenAI, which they just had Sam Altman leave as CEO. Now he's back again. I'm
Mm.
sure that Netflix is writing a script in real time, following up what's going on there, and
Yep.
it's a lot, right? It's good to just step back and to set the boundaries and to focus on what you want to work on at the moment, and really try to set the boundaries to filter out everything else that's happening around. Because having that one moment of focus, like you said, I really like that. You can get a lot done in that time and not feel caught up so much. So that's a really
And
good point.
and you can basically just enter into a natural pace of learning. So like if you're learning something like Clo 3D, let's say you haven't opened the program before and you're willing to give it a try, there's something that happens when you start to follow a tutorial and learn about it that
Yeah.
puts you in a mindset that's very satisfying and very grounding. And if you're just reading about people making stuff in Clo 3D or watching, images go by, it's so stressful and it causes so much anxiety. And I've been there. So I really just would want to like emphasize just, you know, start learning something because it's going to change your whole perspective on time and where you sit in this whole mess of things.
It does, it does. That's really nicely said. So yeah, you you need to remember building resilience just takes time and practice. Um, it's a muscle we need to train, and I haven't figured it out yet. I think it's going to be a work in progress that everyone's on. But there's a few tips and tricks that I think everyone can take away from this session as well. And yeah, it's about just developing that ability to bounce back, when things get tough, and to understand that if something doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world. It's actually really good because you're learning or experiencing directions that you can filter out, right? Every time something doesn't work out, it brings you closer to the goal you're actually getting to. So I
Yeah.
think remembering that is also really important. And also maybe one thing I just wanted to add, because I just recently I have this network as well. So I've got my community that I have, which we also push each other in different community connection points. And it's about writing down your achievements is really powerful to me. I don't know how you feel about that, but very often, like at the end of the week, I sit down and I just do my list of everything I've done and everything I've achieved. And sometimes I'm really surprised about how much actually happened. You don't realize what you're actually doing, especially if you're working in a digital space, because you
Yeah.
can't see it, right? At the end of the day, you close your laptop and that's it. So really writing it, manifesting it, being aware of what you're actually doing, and how much you've achieved is a really important point as well. Um,
Yeah.
so um, to everyone out there, I just want to challenge you. If you have like one thing you're really proud of that you achieved this year, maybe also for you, Wes, write it in the comments. Write it in there, manifest it. Writing it and saying it out to everyone is really a good practice to you can get started with if you want. So feel free to do that as well. Cool. So yeah, by the way, you notice maybe there weren't any comments coming in. I think my comment section is not connected for some reason. So maybe we have some technical issues today. But if we have any questions that we missed from you guys, feel free to add them underneath in the comments as well, so we can get back to them. And I'm I really enjoyed this session with you today, Wes. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me. This was wonderful.
Absolutely. And we'll definitely be hearing and seeing more from you. Everyone out there, feel free to connect with Wes as well. He's doing amazing stuff in the space. He's a mover and shaker, really building this new space for all of us. And if anyone wants to connect, I guess I can just promote to reach out to you at this point and to actually exercise building this community as well.
Yeah, you can find me as We See Clearly on Instagram, LinkedIn, and X. And yeah, I guess that's enough platforms. One of them will hit, right?
Nice. All right. So everyone, have a great evening. Thank you so much for joining, Wes. Keep up doing what you're doing. Keep up being amazing. And we're going to be having a close eye on you, following you, and reach out if you need any support on anything. I think we're all cheering you on the way. So
Thank you. Thank you so much.
take care, everyone. Bye.